Welcome to our show today. We are pleased to have Jan Merrill with us, who spends a lot of time in the interfaith work and is also a member of the Baha'i faith. Welcome.
Thank you, John.
Glad you're here.
Nice to be here.
Would you tell us about where you were born and raised and where you grew up and went to high school and all of those things?
My family, I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and when my father started a job in engineering, we moved to New Jersey, and I lived outside of Camden, New Jersey, where he worked for many years, and then we moved back to Massachusetts, where I finished my high school. And then I went to college in Ohio and came back to Massachusetts and finished up at the University of Massachusetts and started a life in the field of engineering myself. I'm a computer scientist and worked for Hewlett-Packard for many years.
Now, I remember that you and Gary had met in college, I think.
We met after I finished college, and I moved out to the West Coast and met him there. We met at a church singles group, in fact. My husband was a member of the Presbyterian Church at that time, and I was kind of non-religious at that point. And but I was interested in getting to know people and was unmarried at the time. So we met at a singles group and learned that we were both vegetarians and had a lot of other things in common. So that's how we got together.
And do you still have family on the East Coast?
Yeah, most of my family is on the East Coast, although I have a sister in Hawaii and a brother in Seattle area. Yeah, we get to go back every few years and say hello and visit with my family.
My first job out of college was selling pharmaceuticals, and their headquarters was in Camden. And we spent quite a bit of time there each year for a week or two, and I thought that was a very nice area.
Yeah,
It was a fun place. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I'm the oldest of five. I have two brothers and two sisters. And like I said, they live in different parts of the country in Hawaii.
And what's your feelings about family? How important is family, and where does that tie into our life's journey?
Oh, I think family is very important. Baha'u'llah talks about family being the foundation of society. That family is a building block of society. And I think that's really true. Mothers are our first teachers, and they give us the values and the compassion that we use throughout our lives. And I think families give a lot of good training to their children. I was raised in the Episcopal church, and my dad was a Sunday school teacher in the church. And you know, even though I kind of just went through the rituals and it didn't mean a lot to me at first, I feel that my family gave me good values: to be kind, to be generous, to be loving and accepting of people. So I think that was a very important part of my life, to be part of a family like that.
And how did you come to Baha'i?
Well, I was raised in the Episcopal Church, and actually my mother's side of the family is Greek Orthodox. And we often went to special events like Easter and Christmas at the Greek Orthodox Church. So I kind of had both sides of the religious spectrum in a way. The Episcopal was full of the ritual and the ceremony and not too emotional. and the Greek side was just the opposite. It was very spiritual, it was very uplifting. My mother's mother was a very religious person, very thoughtful, and she instilled that in us children. There were 8 grandchildren that all got together for a couple of weeks in the summer and at Easter and Christmas, and she made sure that we were kind to each other, and, you know, as siblings, have rivalries and so forth. We let those go, and we really had some wonderful times together that I treasure.
Were you an influence in the lives of your younger siblings?
I think I was. As an adult, as I was kind of an adult early on, my mother was in and out of hospital for quite a few years when I was a teenager, so I was kind of the foster mother for a while. So I think they thought of me as too much of a disciplinarian sometimes. But I tried to get them to do homework and do chores and things and try to make life, comfortable for them.
Our oldest is a girl and our youngest is a girl, and they're a dozen years apart. And if you listen to them, they grew up in two different worlds from their own accounts. That's always fascinated me. Growing up in those neighborhoods in the East, did you have hobbies and fun things that you liked to pursue?
I used to play the piano. I really enjoyed that. My mother was a very accomplished pianist and a singer also. And I can remember just falling asleep to her playing classical music on the piano. So I learned piano also, although I wasn't very good at it. Just enjoyed learning that part of the of music. And music appreciation has been always important to me. As far as hobbies, when I was young, I don't really remember very many hobbies, to tell you the truth. Between taking care of my family, my brothers and sisters, and schoolwork, I was a pretty studious person. Didn't have hobbies as far as sports goes.
Do you consider yourself raised in a happy environment?
Yeah, I think we were.
Good.
Yeah, I think we were. My dad was very concerned about taking care of the 5 children and providing a good home for us. And my mother, and it's similar to my faith. My mother was emotionally motivated, and my dad was kind of, the scientist. So I got both sides, and I have learned in my older years that they're both part of the same reality, and they're just different sides of looking at the same truth.
That fabric of how we were raised is really interwoven with many threads.
Absolutely.
Now, can we talk about religion versus spirituality for a minute? How would you view that in your life and your surroundings?
I think for me, religion, quotes, started out not very useful for me. I didn't see the reasons for the rituals and the ceremonies and so forth. They seemed hollow to me. But I know that that's a really important part of religion for a lot of people, or their spiritual growth. And I think that that some people are motivated, some people get their spiritual food from the ceremony and the ritual, and other people would just as soon be out in a forest communing with nature, and that's how they receive their spiritual food. But it's all good. It's all it's different ways of looking at the same reality, and being a part of a community, a religious community, is really a treasure that I didn't realize until about 10 years ago, actually.
Do you consider yourself a religious person?
I do now, yeah. I think there's a spiritual aspect of life that I love this expression. Someone told me this in a Baha'i meeting years ago, and it really stuck with me, is that we're not human beings experiencing, having spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think that's really important, that we do have a physical aspect, obviously, but that's not who we really are. We really are our spiritual selves. And I believe, the Baha'is talk about, Baha'u'llah says that we are noble beings, that God created us noble. And it's up to us, our free will, to make decisions on our actions that would make our lives better and the lives of others better.
That's a really nice saying. I've heard that before. I fell in love with my wife when we were 13, and we're a long way down the road now. She was really, really cute and really attractive to me, and she still is. But our grandchildren look at us and think we're older than dirt, and that how could they possibly have ever been young and, you know, physically attracted. So that spiritual being having a human experience through the ages is a nice way to look at that. Do you think Sacramento is a religious area?
I do. I first got interested, well, I became a Baha'i about 7 years ago here in Sacramento area. My husband and I live in Rockland. And when I realized that there were spiritual aspects to life rather than just the straight physical aspects of a scientific mind, which I was born with, I realized that to be part of a group is really important, and to have spiritual conversations is really important. And in the paper years ago, I read about the Faith Club. It was a book written by a Muslim, a Christian, and a Jewish mother, 3 mothers. After the 9/11 tragedy, they wanted to have some way of bringing people together in their common faith as children of Abraham. And they suggested that different people come together in what is similar to a reading club, and to read the book together, because the book is about how they learn to respect each other and to listen to each other about their religious faiths and their backgrounds, and they found so much in common. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing. So I Googled Interfaith and Sacramento, and I came up with the Interfaith Service Bureau. And that's how I became interested in the Interfaith Service Bureau and started coming to the meetings. And Gary and I came to the annual meeting about 4 years ago, I think, 5 years, and have been fascinated with all the projects that are going on since then.
Now, you're doing several things for Interfaith, for which we are grateful, but one of the really nice ones is the forum each month, where others come in and sit around the table and you talk, and we learn more about each other's religions. How did that get started? And
the way I started out in the forum was as a participant, and then I was asked to be the moderator. And the reason that I really wanted to be a part of that is because of the Baha'i principle of prejudice. The Baha'u'llah teaches us that unity is a very important aspect of where we're progressing as humanity. And one of the major problems that keeps us from being unified is prejudice. And I figure that if we can come together and talk in a loving way about our spiritual path and share it with others, and answer questions about it and let others share with us, that's a way that we can break down prejudices, and that people can get to know Muslims, Christians, Jews, Sikhs, everyone, and see that we do have a lot in common, that we're all children of God. So what happens in the forum is that we usually invite one person to speak about their faith and how they came to be part of it, and then we ask questions and bring up our own interpretation or our own. We kind of join together with what they say, and not have any contention. We really just talk about what moves us, and then we go around the room and we talk about what our congregations are doing that others might like to get involved in, either a special program or a celebration or some volunteer work. So it's a way of getting people together and breaking down the stereotypes that might make you feel uncomfortable with another person.
And that group is a mature and wise group. When I attend, I'm always impressed with, we have maturity and wisdom there. People have been around the block a time or two.
Well, and I think people have an interest in in learning more about other faiths. And I think once you learn about a specific individual and you see what they're going through or what is motivating them, it helps you realize that we all have similar views and similar needs in life and desires and wanting to be better individuals and to love God. And I think that it's another form of spiritual food in a way.
I have liked that tagline that keeps coming up, that we shouldn't focus on our differences, but that we should focus on our similarities.
Oh yeah, we have so much more in common. We really do. We want our children to be raised well. We want a good education for our children. We want the world to be more peaceful. And Baha'u'llah gives us ways to do that. Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah is the next manifestation or messenger from God, and that the words that he uttered over the 40 years of his ministry were from God, and that they will help us build a more peaceful world. And the forum is another way to build by step, a better world.
Now, a couple of months ago, I sat with you and some of your friends out in Rockland and went through an overview of things unfolding in the Baha'i faith, and that was a sweet and a generous evening and enlightening for me. Could you share with our viewers a little more of the history and the background and those things that are unfolding?
And the Baha'i faith is a world religion of about 5 to 6 million people, a world religion whose purpose is to unite the races and the people in the world and to help create a better world for everyone, a world of unity and harmony. And Baha'is are followers of Baha'u'llah, who I've used his name many times, but he was the founder of the Baha'i faith and was a nobleman who lived in Persia and who rejected his father's life of a minister to the king. Instead, Baha'u'llah wanted to help the poor and the disadvantaged and oppressed. And so he gave a lot of his wealth away. And but in 1844, another messenger from God, who we now call the Bab, which is Arabic for the gate, revealed himself and in Shiraz in Iran. And he said that he was a messenger from God who had come to prepare people, to purify their hearts, to be ready for the Promised One. And the Promised One is a concept that's in every religion. Every religion talks about a time when people will live in peace and harmony. And Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah is the next step in that revelation from God. And so the Bab sent Baha'u'llah some of his writings, and Baha'u'llah immediately recognized that the writings were of God and became a follower of the Bab and started teaching people himself. The Babis, the followers of the Bab and Baha'u'llah were persecuted by the Persian government and the clergy, and Baha'u'llah was imprisoned and exiled from his home in Tehran 4 different times in the 40 years of his ministry. And even though that was, he lost all his wealth and he was persecuted and jailed, basically, that gave him the opportunity to be safe in prison and to reveal the Word of God. And we have about 100 volumes of work that are his plan, God's plan, through Baha'u'llah for the next age. some of the principles that the Baha'is, that he revealed to us were equality of men and women. Remember, this is the 1840s, 1850s. Elimination of prejudice of all kinds. Unity is the most important element. Elimination of extremes of wealth and poverty. And the social teachings are a way of bringing us together. We've been together as family over the ages, then cities, then city-states, countries, and now humanity is ready to be one family in the whole world. And that's what the Baha'i writings help us to accomplish over time. Probably won't happen in my lifetime.
Now, some of the Baha'is are still persecuted and jailed in the Middle East, are they not?
They are.
And
there are 7 Baha'i leaders in Iran who, after the revolution in 1979, were persecuted very strongly. I mean, the whole Baha'i community of about 300,000 were persecuted over the years. In fact, about 200 Baha'is were martyred. And right now there are 7 Baha'i leaders who are imprisoned in Iran for their religious beliefs. The government of Iran has accused them of being subversive and having ties to Israel, Iran's enemy, when really the fact is that the Baha'i World Center is in Haifa, Israel, and it has the request, not the request, but the permission from the Israeli government to be there. In fact, the mayor of Haifa has, the Baha'is have created a beautiful house of worship on Mount Carmel. And the mayor of Haifa says that when people think of Haifa now, they think of that beautiful shrine that's a gold-domed shrine to the Bab on Mount Carmel. So we're hoping that the Baha'is will be released from prison. They were given 20-year sentences about a year ago. And what's happening in Iran is tragic in one sense. In another sense, there's a purpose for it, and we're praying that the Baha'is will be strong and will eventually be released, and will be able to continue teaching and to follow their religious beliefs.
where do you see yourself 10 or 15 years from now?
Well, when I was in college and so forth, I was a scientist, and if you had told me then that now I would be involved in an interfaith group, a religious group, I would have fallen on the floor. So it's been a real bounty for me to be involved in helping people learn more about themselves, their spiritual side, as I did over years. And I see myself learning and teaching as much as I can in the next 10 years, or the rest of my life, really.
Do you think Sacramento has a way to go? Are we holding our own religiously, spiritually? What can we do interfaith-wise to help Greater Sacramento?
I think Sacramento has a wonderful diversity that big cities often have, and I think it's an opportunity to share ideas about how to make life better for everyone. And I love the idea that we're here at the Interfaith Council to work together on projects and to show reverence and tolerance for other faiths. There are many paths to God, and the whole idea is to grow. And I think there's a great deal of resources here in Sacramento area to do that.
We keep talking in Interfaith about Bishop Quinn's comment that we all live in the same house of God, just came through different doors. Will we grow more tolerant in time, or will we grow further apart, in your opinion? Will we get individualistic? For instance, we have lots of homeless groups and organizations in Greater Sacramento that are trying to help. And a time or two we've talked about trying to bring them all together to where, you know, one great whole could really be making a difference. Will we grow in strength as we go, or will we sort of tatter ourselves out to the winds?
I think as we become more spiritual, as we learn from our scriptures, all our individual scriptures say the same thing. Love God, love your neighbor. And those spiritual qualities, if we listen to them, will help us make a better life. And one of my favorite expressions from the Baha'i faith is, the betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds and commendable and seemly conduct. And I see that happening in Sacramento. I think there's more to do, but I think we're on the right track.
Now, if you could wave a magic wand and eliminate something right now in our society, what would it be?
I think intolerance. I think having people be more accepting of each other and to understand that we're in the same family is the most important thing.
Thank you very much. We've been visiting with Jan Merrill, who is an important part of the interfaith work in Sacramento and a member of the Baha'i faith. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, John.